If you are preparing for the APPSC exams, your understanding of ancient history has a specific, mandatory starting point: Dr. B.S.L Hanumantha Rao's text. This book is the evidentiary baseline for the entire syllabus. But before we pull dates from those pages, we have to look at the physical reality of the Deccan Plateau. When we try to reconstruct the earliest history of ancient Andhra, we run into an immediate problem. There is no single, continuous written chronicle left by the early Andhras themselves. No state archive exists for the first few centuries. To solve this, historians have to triangulate the past. We built the region's history by mapping its geographic borders and layering them with scattered archaeological fragments and observations from outsiders. This brings us to the most common trap on the APPSC exam. You will be tested on the difference between the chronological first mention of the Andhra tribe as a group of people and the much later establishment of the Andhra territory as a defined geographic state. Mastering this first chapter requires building a mental spatial map. Without understanding the raw topography and the physical evidence left in the dirt, the names and dates of Andhra history are impossible to memorize effectively. The core Trilinga Desa is bounded by 3 shrines: Sri Sailam, Draksharamam, and Kalashwaram. To the north and west, the eastern Ghats shield the Deccan from northern invasions. Across this plateau, the Godavari and Krishna rivers carve eastward, depositing heavy sediment. The sheer scale of these water networks provided massive irrigation capacity and a reliable internal transport system across the region. Following these rivers to the end brings us to a 972-kilometer coastline, where they fracture into fertile deltas before emptying into the Bay of Bengal. This specific combination of high-yield river deltas and massive coastal access created a dual economy. The early inhabitants could generate heavy agricultural surpluses inland while simultaneously maintaining maritime trade routes outward. The topography dictated their survival. The mountains protected them from northern assimilation, allowing non-Aryan cultural and religious practices to survive far longer in the south, while the rivers fed an expanding population. Since the Andhras didn't write their own history, our first textual records come from outsiders. The absolute chronological starting point is the Aitareya Brahmana, composed around 800 BCE. In this text, the Andhras are a nomadic tribe on the Vindhyan fringes, outside the Aryan fold. Andhra refers to a people, not a place. Centuries later, the Matsya and Vayu Puranas reference them alongside major epics. The Mahabharata places the Andhra tribe on the Kurukshetra battlefield. Data becomes more granular with foreign accounts, primarily Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador to the Mauryan court, who wrote the Indica. Megasthenes provides a highly tested observation. He recorded that the Andhras possessed 30 walled towns, a military of 100,000 infantry, 2,000 cavalry, and 1,000 elephants. This massive military strength is later corroborated by the Roman historian Pliny. These texts confirm the people existed and had grown into a formidable military force. But literary accounts, especially from distant ambassadors and mythic epics, are often prone to exaggeration. To verify them, we require hard data pulled from the ground. For the APPSC exam, epigraphy, the study of physical inscriptions, is the most heavily weighted source of historical truth. The first concrete proof of political integration in the region comes from the Mauryan emperor Ashoka. These are Ashokan rock edicts. They were carved directly into massive natural boulders to mark territorial administration. The specific edict at Yeragudi proves that the Andhra region functioned as a subordinate ally, administered by officials known as Rajukas, within the broader Mauryan sphere. Moving toward the coast, the site at Amaravati reveals secondary Mauryan influence, marked by early brick stupas and polished stone pillars, signaling centralized architectural ambition. However, the Mauryans did not hold total control. We know this because of the Bati Prolu script, also known as Kubera's inscription. This stone slab bears a distinct localized script, separated from the standard Mauryan records. The Bati Prolu inscription is vital evidence. It proves that local, independent chiefs, referred to as Osthis, were governing localized regions and developing their own linguistic variations well before the Satavahana Empire emerged. Finally, we turn to numismatics, the physical currency of the era. This specific image displays early punch-marked coins, stamped directly from bronze and copper. Excavations of these specific coins in Karimnagar and Amaravati prove that established structured trade routes were active throughout the deltas. The hard dirt confirms the literary texts. Long before a single emperor laid claim to the entire Deccan Plateau, local chiefs were governing walled towns, minting currency, and trading along the rivers. By combining the geographic borders, the external texts, and the physical inscriptions, the complete model comes into focus. This specific arrangement is the pre-Satavahana foundation. History in the Deccan began with a migrating tribe adapting to an isolated, fertile river basin. Over centuries, they utilized the agriculture and maritime access to build walled towns and robust local economies, catching the attention of Greek ambassadors and Mauryan emperors. Let's run through the mandatory checklist for your exam. First, the earliest literary mention of the Andhras is the Aitareya Brahmana. The primary source for their early military strength is Megasthenes Indica. Second, the earliest references describe the Andhras strictly as a tribe, not a fixed geographic territory. Third, the Yaragudi inscription proves their subordinate status to the Mauryans, while the Bhatti Prolu inscription proves the existence of independent local chiefs called Gosthis. For centuries, this landscape remained fragmented, split among local chiefs and varied tribes. But that isolation was about to break. The geographic stage is built. The players are in position. Now, one local dynasty will weaponize these rivers and walled towns to unify the entire plateau. In Chapter 2, we track the rise of the Satavahanas.